Tonight on Y News, the Armed Forces of the Philippines reports 2 possible violations of the New People's Army on the first day of the holiday truce. At least 21 persons were wounded in several blasts which rocked Cotabato province yesterday. Malacanang remains unfazed by a provision of the new United States law which bans the entry into the United States of Philippine government officials involved in Senator Laila de Lima's detention. And weather official warns of possible effects of tropical cyclone Orsola as it enters the Philippine area of responsibility. Good evening. President Rodrigo Duterte declares a holiday truce with communist rebels. The chief executive also directs the reconstitution of the government negotiating panel for the possible resumption of formal peace talks with the National Democratic Front. Rosalie Cos tells us why.
From 12 a.m. of December 23 to 11:59 p.m. of January 7, 2020, a unilateral and reciprocal ceasefire with the Communist Party of the Philippines, New People's Army, and National Democratic Front or CPP-NPA-NDF has been declared by President Rodrigo Duterte. This after the recommendation of the government and National Democratic Front peace panels in preparation for the informal peace talks.
This grant is precisely to generate an atmosphere that will lead to preliminary talks and then formal talks for a peaceful negotiation on the present conflict between the two sides. And we hope that this will pave the way for a lasting peace in this country vis-a-vis the communist rebellion.
This declaration of ceasefire is contrary to the recommendation of the Defense Secretary. The Chief Executive has instructed the Department of National Defense, Department of the Interior and Local Government, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and the Philippine National Police to issue an official declaration and communicate the directive to their respective forces. The DILG and the DND have expressed their willingness to follow the President's directive, though the AFP and the PNP will remain vigilant and take a strong defensive stance. President Duterte has also ordered a reconstitution of the Republic of the Philippines or GRP negotiating panel for the possible resumption of formal peace talks with the leftist groups. He also named the Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea as one of its members. It was on November 23, 2017 when the chief executive formally terminated the formal peace talks with the NDF because of the alleged continued ambushes of the communist rebels against the government forces, though talks were ongoing. In March 2019, President Duterte terminated the service of the GRP Peace Panel headed by Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III. But Bello has been recently sent by the President to the Netherlands to talk with CPP founder Jose Maria Sison for the possible resumption of peace negotiations. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines, or the AFP, and the Philippine National Police have suspended their offensive operations against the Communist Party of the Philippines New People's Army, or CPP-NPA. This after President Rodrigo Roa Duterte signed a ceasefire agreement between the national government and the communist group for the holiday season. Department of National Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana said the military will immediately implement the suspension of military operations in accordance with the order of the Commander-in-Chief, despite the red alert status that the AFP has raised in line with the communist group's celebration of its 51st anniversary on December 26. Department of the Interior and Local Government Secretary Eduardo M. Año on the part of the police said it is the prerogative of the President as Commander-in-Chief to declare a unilateral ceasefire for the Christmas season, and we abide by his decision. Año has also directed the Philippine National Police to comply and to issue appropriate orders to all units in the field. The National Capital Region Police Office will not lower their alert status despite President Rodrigo Duterte's ceasefire order with the rebel groups. Meanwhile, police say that during this holiday season, checkpoints will focus on riding in tandems. Leah Ilagan tells us why.
The National Capital Region Police Office, or NCRPO, will remain on full alert status despite the President's ceasefire order with the Communist Party of the Philippines New People's Army, or CPP-NPA. NCRPO Acting Director, Police Brigadier General De Bolsina says they will not lower down their alert level. Instead, they will deploy almost 9,000 policemen in places of convergence this holiday season and on the CPP's anniversary on December 26.
The alert is the same kasi ang CCP-NPA threat is just one of the threats. No? Mas malakas ngayon kami sa monitoring namin sa terrorism after what happened in Cotabato City. No, and we don't want to happen here.
More than 16,000 force multipliers will also be deployed for the security in bus terminals.
Yan yung priority na palagi dinadaanan ng mga K9 units at EOD namin. Kung napansin nyo, meron kaming operation dyan currently, tinatawag namin ng shock and awe ng EOD at saka K9. Na we have 30 dogs na currently operational. Every day, 15 po naka-deploy niyan.
SINAS also orders the Metro Manila Police to focus their checkpoints on motorcycle riding in tandems to thwart any lawless acts perpetrated by riding in tandem criminals.
Checkpoints, random checkpoint, ang usapan ngayon, para mas madali, focus on the motorcycle. Kasi majority ng mga crimes ang nagko-commit ay riding in tandem. I already issued the directive sa kanila at kinausap ko na yung mga district directors na to devise a plan, isama sa sita, di ba? Pansin nyo, nagsisita kami ng tao, naglalakad. Nasabi ko, pag may motor din, lalo na yung mga naka-standby na motor na may tao, sitain din yun. Basically, you ask the ID, the license, lahat.
Leah Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Separate explosions ripped through Cotabato City and Libungan Town in Cotabato Province Sunday night, leaving 21 people injured, 9 of whom are soldiers. The first blast occurred at 6 p.m. on Sinsuat Avenue in Cotabato City. The attack injured 7 civilians and 9 soldiers. Not long after, a homemade bomb went off at 6:30 p.m. in the nearby town of Libungan in Cotabato Province. 5 people were wounded in the incident. Another blast occurred at around 7:11 p.m. While a reporter on site was in the middle of airing flash reports, nobody was hurt in the incident. Western Mindanao Command spokesperson Major Arvin Encinas said they are not discounting the involvement of the ISIS-linked local terror group Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters, or BIFF, in the series of attacks. All entry and exit points in the city are currently on lockdown following the bombing. The Armed Forces of the Philippines stand firm. The present situation in Mindanao is under control. The following 4 blasts in some parts of the region and possible violations of the ceasefire between the Philippine government with the rebel groups. Dante Amento reports why.
The 4 explosions that occurred in Cotabato City, North Cotabato and Maguindanao Sunday night, where 8 soldiers and 11 civilians were injured, will not affect the martial law termination. According to Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP spokesperson Brigadier General Edgard Arevalo, Malacanang has disclosed that the existing martial law in Mindanao will no longer be extended. Brigadier General Arevalo says their forces will carry out the directive.
Ito ba ay makakaapekto sa stand ng government? Meron na pong pronouncement ang Malacanang na hindi na i-extend ang martial law beyond December 31.
The AFP spokesperson adds those explosions are isolated cases believed to be perpetrated by the Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters, or BIFF. The AFP have control of the situation, he says. Meanwhile, 2 possible violations of the ceasefire between the Philippine government and the CPP-NPA-NDF, which started at midnight today and will end on January 7, 2020, have been made. The first incident happened at 9:20 this morning in Barangay Singon, Tubungan, Iloilo, where a landmine exploded and hurt some Iloilo PNP Mobile Force Company personnel. It was followed 10 minutes later morning where some military personalities were ambushed by individuals believed to be New People's Army or NPA members between the vicinity of Magiway, Tagawayan, Quezon and Labo, Camarines Norte. The soldiers were withdrawing due to the ceasefire declaration. A soldier died and 6 others were injured.
These violations will be taken noted of, and at least to the eyes of our countrymen, makikita nila na kanilang sundalo ay tumutupad sa umiiral na ceasefire. These violations on the other side is their responsibility. Pananagutan nila ito sa sambayan ng Pilipino.
The AFP will make a written report in compliance with the Defense Department mandate, which will be submitted to President Rodrigo Duterte. Dantiamento, UNTV News and Rescue, Camp Aguinaldo.
Malacanang is not bothered by the United States of America banned the government officials involved in Senator Laila de Lima's detention. Rosalie Cos explains why.
President Donald Trump has signed the 2020 budget of the United States of America, particularly the Department of State, Foreign Operations and Related Programs Appropriations Bill 2020 on Friday, December 20. The law contains a provision allowing U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to stop the U.S. entry of those behind the detention of Senator Laila de Lima. According to Senator de Lima, President Rodrigo Duterte and presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo led her alleged illegal arrests and unjust detention. However, Malacanang has repeatedly denied this and insisted the arrest and detention of de Lima underwent legal process.
The Secretary of State, unlike the 2 senators who introduced the amendment, is better informed and educated on the internal judicial process of this country, and would necessarily follow his informed judgment.
There is a particular law in America that authorizes U.S. government to sanction those whom it sees as human rights offenders by banning them from entering the U.S. and freezing their assets. However, the palace is not bothered by this law. Panelo says personally he is not affected by this because he has no plans on visiting the United States of America.
We're not bothered by it. First, that's their process. Cannot intrude in the same way that we react when they intrude into our processes. Number 2, the very provision says there must be credible information before they ban any official in the Philippines.
Democrat Senators Dick Durbin and Patrick Leahy were the authors of the said amendment in the U.S. Budget 2020, which was approved by the U.S. Senate Appropriations Committee in September. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
Are you planning to go on a sea trip to the Visayas and Mindanao this week? Listen to this. Authorities warn of the possible effects as Tropical Storm Orsola has entered the Philippine area of responsibility. And you may just be stranded at the ports. Ray Pelayo details why.
Dun sa mga babiyahe papuntang Visayas, Visayas papunta rito, Mindanao papunta rito, iliban nyo na muna yung inyong plano na bumiyahe.
This is the advice of the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration or PAGASA to those planning to travel by sea this holiday in areas that may be affected by Tropical Cyclone Orsola like the Visayas. Those passengers are warned they will just be stranded at ports because if the tropical cyclone wind signal is raised, sea travel will be automatically cancelled to avoid untoward incidents.
Ang ibig pong sabihin, pag may signal, ito yung protocol, ito yung policy ng Coast Guard na pag may signal na ay hindi na pwedeng tumawid yung lahat ng klaseng barko, lahat ng klaseng sasakyan pandagat.
Department of Science and Technology Undersecretary Renato Solidum warns the public that even if Tropical Cyclone Ursula's wind is not that strong, it will bring heavy rainfall that may trigger floods and landslides. He adds it is better to avoid mountainous areas with cracks caused by earthquakes. Meanwhile, the official refutes the rumors that shaking in the area surrounding Mount Apo is due to a volcanic activity. Solidum clarified the origin of the recent quake is tectonic and not volcanic.
Marami po tayong sensor sa paligid nito pero wala po tayong nakikitang anumang volcanic activity sa kasalukuyan. At ang lahat po ng lindol ay related po sa pagkilos ng faults.
More than 1,000 aftershocks have been recorded after the December 15 magnitude 6.9 earthquake in Davao del Sur. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Welcome back to Y News. We pick up to where Angelo Castro III left off. I'm Alex Baltazar, and here are the headlines. Laguna governor bans sales of palm liquor or lambanog amid methanol poisoning that killed at least 11 persons. Prices of pork in some supermarkets too much for consumers, according to the Department of Trade and Industry. The armed forces of the Philippines turned over 2 rescued Indonesian kidnapped victims to the Indonesian government. 2 new motorcycle taxis join Angkas in pilot test run. And the local prices of petroleum products to increase this week. Good evening. The province of Laguna temporarily bans the sale of palm liquor, locally known as lambanog, amid reported deaths and hospitalization due to methanol poisoning. Sherwin Colobong has this report.
Laguna Governor Ramil Hernandez appeals for public understanding after he ordered a temporary ban on sale and purchase of lambanog or palm liquor in the province. This as authorities are investigating the alcohol poisoning incident in the town of Rizal. Earlier, the Food and Drug Administration or FDA called on local government units to enforce a ban on the sale of unregistered lambanog products. Brigadier General Vicente Danao, Director of Calabarzon Regional Police, likewise ordered police officers in Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Rizal, and Quezon to ask store owners to stop the sale of lambanog until a clearance is issued by the FDA. This morning, Fred Ray, owner of Ray Lambanog, which is blamed for the alcohol poisoning, surrendered to authorities.
Inamin naman nila na sa kanila galing yung alak at actually may po sila permit na magbenta ng alak. From meron po silang DTI permit. At sinasabi din po nila na meron doon silang BFAD permit. So yun po ang hinihingi namin sa kanila ngayon.
Rizal Police Chief Captain Linley Tibuk said Ray promised to help shoulder the victims' expenses.
Hindi rin po nila may paliwanag kasi first time din po na nangyari sa kanilang produkto ito. Handa silang tumulong sa mga biktima sa financially.
11 people were confirmed dead while at least 300 others were hospitalized on Sunday after drinking palm liquor. The victims came from different holiday parties but all bought liquor from the same store.
Based dun po sa findings ng PGH, dun sa ilan na dinala dun, meron pong nag-positive sa methanol intoxication.
Following the alcohol poisoning, Rizal Mayor Bener Muñoz said he has placed the town under a state of emergency to gain access to financial assistance.
Kahit kami nabigla Hindi namin alam na may mangyayaring ganito sa bayan namin. Imagine kung gaano kadami yung naapektuhang pamilya kung kailan pa naman time for the holiday season. Tunay na nakakalungkot. Pero, well, we are doing our best para ma-extend ang tulong sa aming mga kababayan.
The FDA said samples will be brought to the Philippine General Hospital for testing. The agency advises the public to keep victims of food poisoning hydrated and rush them to the nearest hospitals. Sherwin Kulubong, UNTV News and Rescue, Rizal, Laguna.
More than 60 individuals are now confined in the Philippine General Hospital after drinking lambanog in Laguna. One of them is in critical condition. Nel Maribuhok tells us why.
68 individuals who are among the Laguna residents who drank lambanog at the weekend remain under observation in the Philippine General Hospital. 165 patients arrived in the PGH yesterday, but some of them were transferred to East Avenue Medical Center and Rizal Medical Center. 9 patients that remain in PGH are being strictly monitored. One of them is in critical condition.
Yun pong mga pasyente natin na nasa ER, lalo na po yung mga unstable, yung nasa red, isa po ay nasa ICU, siya po ay dinadialysis para matanggal po yung acid sa kanyang dugo. Yun naman pong iba, yung 6 po ay naiakyat na sa ward. Siyempre, minomonitor pa. 2 na lang po yung nasa emergency room.
PGH spokesperson Dr. Jonas Del Rosario confirms the poisoning.
It's methanol poisoning. Ganyan po ang signs and symptoms ng methanol toxicity. At na-confirm na po, nakausap din po namin si Mayor ng Mayor Muñoz.
42 patients are placed under yellow code or with symptoms of methanol poisoning like headaches, dizziness, and abdominal pain. Most of them are now under medication. 17 of the patients are under green code or under observation as they are not experiencing any symptoms. Dr. Del Rosario also reports the minors among the patients aged 13 to 16 are now in stable condition. According to PGH, the patients may be released from hospital this week. 11 individuals have died earlier due to methanol poisoning as confirmed by San Pablo City District Hospital. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Local prices of petroleum products will increase this week. In separate advisories, Filipino Shell Petroleum Corp and Sea Oil Philippines announced that the price of their diesel will go up by 1 peso and 15 centavos per liter and kerosene by 1 peso and 5 centavos. Gasoline prices will remain unchanged. Petrogas also said it will implement the same amount of adjustment except for kerosene, which it does not carry. The oil price hike is effective 6 a.m. on Tuesday, December 24. Other oil companies have yet to announce any price movement for this week. This marks the second consecutive week of price hikes for diesel and kerosene. The Armed Forces of the Philippines turns over to the Indonesian government 2 of their fishermen abducted by the Abu Sayyaf group in September. President Joko Widodo expresses thanks for the Philippines' rescue efforts. Dante Amento tells us why.
Indonesian Ambassador to the Philippines, Dr. Sinyo Hari Sarundahang, extend their gratitude for the efforts to rescue Maharudin bin Lunani and Samyon bin Maneo. The 2 Indonesian nationals were rescued by the AFP after fierce firefights against the Abu Sayyaf group Sunday morning.
On behalf of the President Joko Widodo, President of the Republic of Indonesia, and Madam Retno, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia, would like to give you thank you very much for your brave and you do something for us as brother.
The 2 fishermen abducted at sea off Lahadato, Sabah, Malaysia last September 23. AFP Western Mindanao Command Chief Lieutenant General Cirilito Subihana says they have sent additional forces in the area to rescue the remaining Indonesian kidnap victim, Muhammad Farhan. The AFP continued to validate a report that a Filipino remains in the hands of the ASG.
We strongly believe that he is still in the vicinity. That's why we do not leave the place. Our Marines, our Army soldiers are still there scouring the area, hoping that within the day we will be able to get him.
Dante Amento, UNTV News and Rescue.
Malacanang ensures the rule of law will prevail after rape cases have been filed against a religion sect leader, Apollo Quiboloy, and 5 others. This is the response of presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo when asked if the closeness of President Rodrigo Duterte and Quiboloy would affect the cases the Davao-based sect leader is facing. Quiboloy is being accused of raping a woman when she was still a minor, a member of Quiboloy's group and one of his scholars. Quiboloy's legal counsel lawyer Israelito Torion said in a press briefing on Friday that the allegation was part of a grand conspiracy to pin down his client.
The rule of law in this country always prevails, regardless of who are involved.
For the first time, the National Capital Region Police Office used aerial patrol in monitoring the security of the Metro Manila Film Festival Parade of Stars. The NCRPO conducted the aerial security monitoring using a Special Action Forces chopper and UNTV drone. Leia Ilagan tells us why.
The Metro Manila Film Festival Parade held yesterday in Taguig City was generally peaceful. National Capital Region Police Office or NCRPO Acting Director, Police Brigadier General Debold Sinas reports they did not monitor any untoward incidents during the entire parade.
Importante sa amin yung spy patrol para makita namin yung mga deployment namin sa kalsada. Which we're very happy na as agreed upon ng different sector commanders, nandun po yung mga pulis namin. Okay, very visible from the sky. Okay, thank you UNTV for that.
Sinas admits this is the first time they used aerial security monitoring using the Special Action Force helicopter and the UNTV drone.
That's the first time that we launched officially our sky patrol with UNTV as part of the monitoring.
The UNTV news crew also boarded the Special Action Force helicopter for aerial monitoring of the ground. The NCRPO plans to conduct aerial time security monitoring in every major event in Metro Manila. UNTV is the Philippines' pioneer in drone journalism. The UNTV drone was first used in giving a bird's eye view of the scope of damages of Typhoon Yolanda in Tacloban City in 2013. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue, Quezon City.
2 new motorcycle taxis began operation today. However, issues and questions still surround a pilot test run involving Angkas, Move It, and Joyride PH. And franchise from the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board may be secured by motorcycle taxis later than sooner. Joan Ano details why.
2 new motorcycle taxis have joined Angkas for another 3-month pilot test run. This following the approval of the Department of Transportation's Technical Working Group or TWG. The new transport network companies or TNCs are Joyride PH and Move It. The 3-month pilot test run kicks off today and will end on March 23, 2020. The TWG has also set a cap for the motorcycle taxis, limiting their number to 39,000. Each transport network company will be allowed to have only 10,000 riders, which will operate in Metro Manila, and 3,000 riders from each firm for Metro Cebu. However, Angkas strongly disagrees with this policy. Yesterday, thousands of Angkas riders joined for a unity ride to condemn the new guidelines set by the government. Angkas claims that around 17,000 of the riders will lose their jobs because of the policy.
Sana po tayo pupulutin. Pinaghirapan po natin to ng 3 taon, lahat ng biker, nag-iingat, disiplinado sa daan. Pinoprotektahan natin yung industriya. Ngayon po, pinaspasan po itong technical evaluation ng TWG para sa new players at the risk and the expense of safety that can destroy the entire industry.
But according to LTFRB board member Antonio Garjola, who heads the TWG, contrary to the claim of Angkas, they have instead increased the number of motorcycle taxis from 27,000 to 39,000. Under the new guidelines, the riders have the prerogative where they want to register, that is with Angkas, Joyride PH or Move It, as long as the 13,000 cap for each TNC is followed. But dual registration or double citizenship is prohibited by the TWG. The gradual transition will happen until the first week of January 2020. However, some Angkas riders are not in favor of this.
Baguhan pa lang yung player na Move It tsaka Joyride. Gusto mo lumipat kaming mga veterano sa Angkas? Hindi po.
The TWG reiterates they are still studying and reviewing the safety issues of motorcycle taxis, so securing their franchise may not happen soon. The TWG emphasizes the issue of livelihood should not be associated with safety issues.
Let us all remember na ang pinag-aaralan dito is safety. Wala tayong pinag-aaralan dito magkano kikitain mo. So they must follow the guidelines being set forth by the Technical Working Group. Do not make your own rules. Do not make your own appeals. Don't agitate the people. Don't agitate the riding public.
If Angkas fails to comply, the TWG warns to suspend them in the pilot test run. Motorcycle riders who will not register with any of the three firms until January will be considered as colorum and will be apprehended by authorities. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Parking remains to be one of the problems that motorists face every day. With parking spaces somewhat scarce, it's illegal to put signage like reserved or private in parking spaces in Quezon City. Vincent Arboleda reports.
Are you experiencing difficulty to find a space to park your car? Do you keep seeing signages like reserved for customers only, reserved or private on a vacant public parking slot? With the current traffic situation in Metro Manila and the scarcity of proper parking spaces, it makes one wonder, is it really allowed to reserve parking slots in a public space in Quezon City? According to Quezon City Local Ordinance Number SP 1465, any person, whether natural or judicial, is prohibited to reserve parking spaces in a public space. The ordinance remains in effect since it was established on 2004. The ordinance was penned after several incidents of arguments and confrontations erupting from putting up reserved parking spaces on streets and in front of establishments.
Ang nagiging problema ay yun for the public parking at nasa harap ng isang establishment. Ginagawa na nilang exclusive lane sa kanila. Yun ay bawal kasi hindi namang sa kanila yun public parking na yon. It's for the public use. You go to Timog, Morato, Panay Avenue, nakabarando yung mga nakapark dyan, illegally parked.
Based on the ordinance, whoever is found violating will be fined 2,000 pesos up to 5,000 pesos or imprisonment of not longer than 6 months. But according to Quezon City Transport and Traffic Management Group, no one has been punished for the law this year as no one has lodged a complaint. But this does not mean that establishments could get away with such acts.
So, kinakailangan yung business establishment should provide their own parking space. That is the ideal situation.
Authorities advise the public to report violators to their office or through their contact hotline 122 or call the President's Hotline 8888. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
And to finally compute the most significant news for this day, Y News continues. Here are the top stories. To parents and all those in charge of their kitchens, where do you buy meat from? Are you satisfied with the price of the meat that you purchase, perhaps in the wet market or maybe a supermarket? The Department of Trade and Industry held a special market monitoring today in Pasig City and found out the prices of meat are not right for consumers. Let's find out why from Asher Kadapan Jr.
Consumers are now rushing for last-minute shopping in preparation for the holidays. To make sure the prices are right, the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, conducted special market monitoring in some supermarkets in Pasig City today. In the meat section, they noticed the price of pork, which they determined are too much for consumers.
Because this is a supermarket, expected natin na mas mataas talaga ang presyo ng pork dahil dun sa cold storage facility nila, yung temperature, yung environment ng pinagbibilihan. Kaya lang, ang 100 pesos na diferensya from the dapat na retail price niya, called from the farm gate price, masyadong mataas.
DTI Undersecretary Ruth Costello further explained the very high price of pork may drive away consumers to buy alternative products. This may not help hog raisers recover from their big losses brought about by the African swine fever or ASF outbreak. Several consumers, on the other hand, say they still prefer to buy in supermarkets despite the high price of meat.
Kasi yung quality ng meat, we've been here regularly. We find it very convenient talaga to shop here.
The DTI also recommends to consumers to patronize bundled products which offer up to 30 or 50 pesos or more savings. The agency also reminds the public to always check the expiry date and price tag of products before buying them. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue, Pasig City.
Meanwhile, Filipinos gave higher approval and trust ratings to the country's top officials. President Rodrigo Duterte Vice President Leni Robredo and other top national officials, according to a recent Pulse Asia survey. Rosalie Cos reports.
President Rodrigo Duterte, Vice President Leni Robredo, Senate President Vicente Soto III, House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano, all got higher ratings in their performance and public trust. This is based on the survey of Pulse Asia Research Incorporated from December 3 to 8, 2019. The survey was done during the conduct of the Southeast Asian or SEA Games in the country. President Duterte gained 9 points higher approval ratings. From 78% in September, he got 87% in December 2019. The chief executive also earned 9 points higher in his trust ratings. Malacanang welcomes the survey results, saying the president's ratings are record-breaking.
There is no president in the history of this country during his midterm that the rating went up, except for this president. The trajectory is always downtrend. It's unprecedented. It's a record-breaking rating.
VP Robredo also has higher trust and approval ratings. VP Robredo has 8 points higher in her approval ratings. From 50% in September, she got 58% this month. Her recent trust ratings rose 7 points higher. From 46% in September, she got 53% in December. According to the Vice President's camp, this is affirmation that her quiet yet committed efforts on behalf of our countrymen continue to bear fruit more than halfway into her term as the country's second top official. The public also gave higher ratings for the Senate President and the House Speaker. Senator Soto shares the increased ratings with his fellow senators who are as equally dedicated to the true essence of public service, he says. According to Pulse Asia, the developments that preoccupied Filipinos in the days leading up to and during the survey are the dismissal of Vice President Maria Leonor G. Robredo as co-chair of the Interagency Committee on Anti-Illegal Drugs or ICAD, the Philippines' hosting of the 30th Southeast Asian Games, and the Duterte administration's refusal to pay Manila Water and Maynilad nearly 10 billion pesos awarded to them by the Singapore-based Permanent Court of Arbitration, among others. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
In other news, the Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, assures there will be no conflict in their preparations for the barangay and SK elections and the national elections in 2022. Joanano explains why.
The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, is now focusing on preparing for the 2022 elections. This comes after President Rodrigo Duterte signed Republic Act, or RA 11462, or the postponement of the 2020 Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan Elections Act early this month. The BSK elections will instead be held in 2022 after the national and local elections in May, also in 2022. But COMELEC spokesman Director James Jimenez assures there will be no conflict despite the two elections happening in the same year. COMELEC isn't new to this kind of setup because it already happened last 2016.
In fact, dati mas madikit pa. May yung national elections tapos October yung ARM elections. So ngayon, actually mas maluwag dahil December. Pangalawa, yung preparations natin for December 2022, nagawa na natin ngayon because we were expecting the elections this year. So we've done everything. We've basically started procurement processes. Remember, manual elections yan. So it takes, it's a little easier to prepare for.
The poll body assures they will not be lax in choosing the suppliers of the materials needed for the elections. According to Director Jimenez, they have to thoroughly examine and scrutinize the suppliers to assure there will be no glitches. COMELEC admits there were setbacks in the 2019 midterm polls.
At this point, wala tayong mapipigilang kahit sino na mag-participate sa bidding. But certainly, we hope that more players will come to the fore. Napakahalaga ng competition, as you know. And in this, yung sa electoral system, mahalaga rin syempre na yung may wide range of choice tayo.
COMELEC admits there were setbacks in the 2019 midterm polls. COMELEC is confident that voters are now wiser in choosing the right candidates that are rightful to serve the Filipino people. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue.
And for the news abroad, the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, won't be reaping the benefits of a law by which heads of state enjoy a lifelong payout of almost $7,000 a month. June Garin will tell us why.
French President Emmanuel Macron has given up his future pension and widespread strikes over reforms, the presidential residence Élysée Palace said in a statement. The French president, who marked his 42nd birthday on Saturday, will not be reaping the benefits of a 1955 law by which heads of state enjoy a lifelong payout of $6,890 a month, equivalent to the salary of a state councilor. He would have the right to cash in the benefit from the end of his mandate in May 2022, age 44, or in 2027, age 49, if re-elected for a second term. The law will not apply to any future president of France, and instead, a new system will be established within the framework of the Universal Point Pension Scheme that is currently being negotiated. This is a matter of exemplarity and consistency, the authorities said. June Garin, UNTV News and Rescue, Paris, France.
Meanwhile, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Sunday defended an amendment to a citizenship law that has triggered massive protests claiming around 20 lives. Maya Barquez reports.
Indian police on Saturday confirmed another 5 deaths in Uttar Pradesh during violent protests against a contentious law that excludes Muslim immigrants from citizenship. Restrictions were imposed in large parts of the state owing to violent protests recorded over the past week, while internet and mobile services were also suspended in several districts. The protest started 2 Mondays ago when the government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi tabled an amendment to the citizenship law in parliament, seeking to regularize Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Christians, Parsis, and Jains from neighboring Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh who arrived in India before December 31, 2014. The government of India, a country that does not have specific regulations for refugees, has justified the law by citing the need to grant asylum to minorities who have been persecuted in their respective countries. However, it makes no mention of Muslim asylum seekers. Modi on Sunday defended the amendment to the citizenship. He said Muslims who are sons of the soil and whose ancestors are the children of Mother India need not to worry. Modi accused opposition parties of trying to push not only New Delhi but other parts of the country into a fear of psychosis. The clashes have left at least 21 people dead in a dozen cities, including an 8-year-old boy. Hundreds have been wounded and thousands detained, according to several local authorities. Although almost half the victims suffered gunshot wounds, authorities have denied that they were committed by the police. Maya Barquez, UNTV News and Rescue.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un calls for beefing up Pyongyang's military during a meeting with senior military officials. Kaf Dumaraos details why.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un chaired a meeting of the country's top military officials to discuss political and military measures to bolster its defensive capabilities, according to state media KCNA. The date of the meeting was not revealed, but it was held amid revived tensions with the United States and after Pyongyang threatened to take a new path from the denuclearization talks with Washington. KCNA said Kim gave an analysis and briefing on the complicated internal and external situation, and the meeting would decide on important organizational and political measures and military steps to bolster up the overall armed forces. At the forthcoming plenary meeting of the Workers' Party of Korea, the regime is expected to make decisions on its dialogue with Washington. Pyongyang proposed a year-end deadline for the U.S. to present a new offer to the negotiations before the regime opts for a new path, the North Korean leader warned in the previous full party in April. Talks on disarmament have remained stalled since the failed second summit in Hanoi in February, where the U.S. considered the number of active nuclear sites North Korea proposed to dismantle as insufficient and refused to lift sanctions. The top U.S. official responsible for talks with North Korea, Stephen Biegun, recently visited Seoul, Tokyo, and Beijing to make progress on negotiations, although the trip did not result in any visible progress. His visit came after Pyongyang announced that it conducted a major test of its defense capabilities at a satellite launch station, which followed other arms tests carried out in previous weeks. Kat Lumaraos, UNTV News and Rescue.
4 Filipino special education students, Ace, Florence, Keith, and Carl, succeeded in a competition held in South Korea this month with approximately 300 participants from 24 nations. The Philippines has been joining and winning the Global IT Challenge for Youth and Disabilities since 2012. And this year, 4 students from Valenzuela National High School, Manila High School, and General Pio del Pilar National High School brought home the bacon. Nina Armilio has the details.
Meet Florence Jaime Fernandez, Keith Rafael Ignacio, Ace Benedict Daito, and Carl Francis Du. They are the 4 special education students who represented the Philippines at the Global IT Challenge for Youth with Disabilities held on November 25 to 29 in Busan, South Korea. To their surprise, they won a number of awards at the competition, which aims to broaden the access of children with special needs to technology, education, and more opportunities.
I can't believe that I won the competition. Of course, I felt happy, proud, and thankful to my parents, school, and of course to the Lord above.
I want to thank God for having such blessings like this na di ko may expect.
Among the events the Philippine team won is programming a robot car to move around a maze under the Creative Challenge.
Pinakagusto ko dun yung paggawa ng robot, yung pag-program. Nagustuhan ko yung sa pag-program kasi nadilaan ako dahil parang sa math.
The Teenage IT Champions also thank the Department of Education and Communications Technology, the National Council on Disability Affairs, and all those who root for them.
Nakaka-overwhelm yung ginawa sa akin ni God nung ginawa niya sa buhay ko. Parang na-appreciate ko po sa lantob na.
For Chris Perez, Project Evaluation Officer 2 of the NCDA, who has a physical disability himself, it is high time we learn to appreciate and recognize the capabilities and contributions of persons with disabilities.
Ang lipunan natin dapat maging aware sa mga tao may kapansanan. May kapansanan po kasi hindi halata at may kapansanang halata. Dapat rights-based approach ang pag-handle sa mga tao may kapansanan.
The parents and trainers of the 4 boys emphasize that beyond disabilities, manifest abilities, and therefore can be honed.
I-accept nila kung ano yung meron yung mga anak nila.
Hindi natin dapat sila itago. Kailangan tanggap natin kung anong meron sila. Dahil beyond these disabilities, merong abilities talaga na magsha-shine on sa kanila.
Meanwhile, according to Paulo Espiritu and Sara Acero of Haraya, a local startup who coached the students, addressing the needs of PWDs in the country must be paid attention to.
It's more of raising awareness talaga, not just for the Philippines, pero makita ng lahat ng tao around the world na there are these people competing and there are these people who have the skills to really excel and to really work beyond the competition.
The win of those 4 students, malaking step siya to let the public know na kayang-kaya talaga ng people with disabilities to excel in these fields.
Ace, Florence, Keith, and Carl aim to inspire Filipinos to be fighters in life and be proud of their disabilities and use them to be stronger.
Thank you.
Nina Armilio, UNTV, News and Rescue, Philippines.
And those are the reasons behind the news this December 23rd, 2019. On behalf of Alex Baltazar and Angelo Castro III, I am William Theo, and before we close, we will recap with today's significant sound bites. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.
These violations will be taken noted of, and at least to the eyes of our countrymen, makikita nila na kanilang sundalo ay tumutupad sa umiiral na ceasefire. These violations, on the other side, is their responsibility. Pananagutan nila ito sa sambayan ng Pilipino.
First, that's their process. Cannot intrude in the same way that we react when they intrude into our processes.
babiyahe papuntang Visayas, Visayas papunta rito, Mindanao papunta rito. Iliban nyo na muna yung inyong plano na bumiyahe.
It's methanol poisoning. Ganyan po ang signs and symptoms ng methanol toxicity.
Inamin naman nila na sa kanila galing yung alak. At actually may po sila, permit na magbenta ng alak. From meron po silang DTI permit. At sinasabi din po nila na meron dun silang BFAD permit. So yun po ang hinihingi namin sa kanila ngayon.
Yung preparations natin for December 2022, nagawa na natin ngayon because we were expecting the elections this year. So we've done everything. We've basically started procurement processes. Remember, manual elections yan. So it takes, it's a little easier to prepare for.